So, I want you to imagine you're playing this like really strange kind of strategy game,
Okay, I'm listening.
right? And in this game, the absolute most expensive, cutting-edge tool that you need to win, it gets cheaper every single day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the price just drops
Yeah.
relentlessly. So here's the dilemma, right? Do you keep bragging to your competitors about simply owning that tool?
Right.
Like, do you put it in a glass case and show it off? Or do you shift your entire focus to what you can actually build with it before, everyone else figures out the rules have completely changed?
I mean, it is a phenomenal scenario to think about because honestly, it mirrors the exact inflection point that the enterprise technology world is hitting right now.
Yeah,
Like if you spend all your energy marveling at the sheer horsepower of an engine, you completely forget that the actual goal is to, drive somewhere.
exactly.
We're moving past the era of just being dazzled by the raw capability of artificial intelligence engines.
Oh.
We're entering the era of what those engines actually produce.
And that shift, that's the entire mission of today's deep dive. We're unpacking a brand new release and a incredibly detailed white paper.
Very detailed.
Yeah, both dated today, June 23, 2026, from EON AI Ventures. And they're calling out what they see as the most consequential shift in enterprise AI right now.
It really is a massive shift.
So the core argument here is that the AI model layer is rapidly commoditizing, and all the real value in the business world is migrating to this new category they call work intelligence.
Right.
But I have to admit, like, reading through the first section of this paper, I found myself getting a little tripped up by what felt like a major contradiction.
Oh, really? Which part?
Well, okay, so the paper states that the underlying AI engine-like, the models themselves, are losing their premium status, right? They're becoming commodity.
Right. That's their whole thesis.
But if you look at the financial news on literally any given day, we are seeing headlines about massive multi-billion-dollar funding rounds for AI infrastructure. I mean, the white paper itself even cites this major long-horizon institutional investor that recently fueled a valuation round up to like $13 billion for a tier of infrastructure specialists.
Yeah, $13 billion valuation is hard to ignore.
Exactly. So if the market is throwing $13 billion at the companies running these models, how can we sit here and say the engine is losing its premium status? I mean, that sounds like the engine is the whole ballgame.
I know, it looks like a total contradiction on the surface.
Yeah.
But those massive valuations, they're actually the ultimate proof of commoditization.
Wait, how does that work?
So we really have to separate the training of an AI model from the inference of an AI model.
Okay, lay that out for me.
Sure. So training is that initial phase, right?
Yeah.
It's where you're essentially dumping the entire internet into a supercomputer to teach the AI how to think.
Right, and that takes massive data centers.
Exactly. And that is still insanely expensive. But inference, which is just asking the model to do a task or answer a question once it's already been trained, that is a total race to the bottom.
Ah, okay.
Those infrastructure companies you mentioned, the ones getting the huge valuations, they're scaling massively, specifically because the cost of running those everyday tasks is dropping so fast.
Because it's getting cheaper for everyone else to use them.
Precisely. And open source models, they've nearly closed the quality gap with the insanely expensive closed frontier models.
So an enterprise doesn't need to use the absolute smartest, most expensive AI in the world just to do, like, basic corporate grunt work.
Not at all.
Yeah.
If you are routing tasks for a Fortune 500 company right now, you are increasingly looking at your workflow and sending the vast majority of it to the absolute cheapest model that is simply good enough for that specific job.
Wow.
Yeah. The sources actually note that businesses are getting work done at roughly 30% of the cost of a closed frontier model. EON refers to this as the weights, the actual inference costs, and they're falling every single quarter.
It's kind of like, well, okay, it's like paying for a multi-million-dollar custom-built luxury sports car just to commute 3 blocks to the grocery store to buy milk.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right, like a cheap, reliable, compact car does the exact same job for a tiny fraction of the cost, and you honestly don't care about the brand of the compact car as long as the milk gets home.
Exactly. You do not need a supercomputer to do basic data extraction or, to draft a standard vendor email.
Right, and mathematically, when the underlying infrastructure of a technology becomes cheap and ubiquitous like that, the competitive advantage of simply having access to that tech basically goes to zero.
Yes. Everyone has the compact car. Everyone can get the milk.
Which opens up this massive strategic void.
Completely.
Because if the AI engine is getting cheaper by the minute and literally everyone has access to it, Where does a company actually build a competitive advantage?
And this is exactly where EON introduces their core philosophy.
Yeah, Dan Lajerskar, the founder and chairman of EON AI Ventures, he has a quote in the release that frames this perfectly, I think.
Let's hear it.
He says, when the engine becomes a commodity, you do not win by owning a slightly better engine. You win by owning what the engine produces and what compounds over time.
That right there, that is the crux of what EON calls structural asymmetry.
Structural asymmetry. Okay, break that down for us.
It is a fascinating economic concept. Think of a scale, right?
Okay, visualizing a scale.
On one side of the scale, the cost of the models goes down every single quarter. That side is getting lighter and lighter.
Right.
But on the other side of the scale, the value of an enterprise is captured expertise-like, their proprietary knowledge of how to actually execute their unique business. That gets heavier and more valuable every quarter.
So the costs deflate, but the actual intellectual asset appreciates.
Precisely. And they're defining that appreciating asset as work intelligence.
Work intelligence. Yeah, the white paper describes this as the structured, verifiable record of how an enterprise's people actually do the work.
It's a big claim.
It is. They're pitching this as the fourth system of record, putting it right up there on the shelf with like your ERP, your CRM, and your PLM.
Which are huge foundational enterprise systems.
Right. But frankly, when I read system of record for how work is done, my corporate jargon alarm went off just a little bit.
I could see why it would.
I'm like, hold on, we use ERPs to track every dime we spend and every physical asset we own, right?
Right.
And we use CRMs to track every interaction with a customer. But a system for tracking how work is actually done, doesn't every company already have a shared drive stuffed full of standard operating procedures and PDF training manuals?
Oh, absolutely they do.
So how is this work intelligence thing any different than a dusty old SharePoint flutter?
Because a standard operating procedure on a shared drive is completely static. I mean, it's dead text.
True, nobody ever reads them anyway.
Exactly. It doesn't know if the person reading it actually understands it, and it certainly does not update itself when a senior engineer on the factory floor figures out a faster, safer way to solve a mechanical failure.
Oh, I see.
Shifting the focus from the AI technology itself to a dynamic, verifiable record of human expertise is a massive paradigm shift.
Because it's alive, essentially.
You aren't just logging that an employee completed a task. You are structuring the exact, nuanced mechanics of how they did it, so that it can be replicated, scaled, and analyzed by the entire organization instantly.
Okay, I see the vision now. But let's talk about the reality of trying to actually manage that.
It's not simple, for
Right,
sure.
because you are an enterprise sitting between these deflating AI model costs on one side and this incredibly valuable rising intellectual property on the other.
The structural asymmetry we talked about.
Exactly. So how do you actually connect the two without exposing yourself to massive risk? I mean, every week there is a new horror story in the news about like an intern trying to save time by pasting the company's confidential Q3 strategy into a public AI chatbot.
Just to get it summarized into a haiku or something.
Right. And suddenly your proprietary roadmap is permanently absorbed into the public hive mind.
It is the ultimate nightmare, especially for highly regulated or highly competitive industries.
Totally. So how does EON solve that?
Well, their answer to this is a piece of technology they call EON Conductor. And they describe it using a very biological term, which is actually really helpful here. They call it a membrane.
A membrane.
Think of a real biological cell membrane. It is selectively permeable.
Meaning it lets certain things in but keeps other things out?
Exactly. It lets the good stuff, like nutrients or, in our case, cheap computing power from these models, it lets that in. But it absolutely blocks the cell's DNA, your company's secret sauce, from leaking out into the surrounding environment.
I love that analogy. So the conductor essentially sits between the public AI ecosystem and the private enterprise vault.
Yes, and it performs 3 specific jobs to keep that membrane functioning perfectly. The first is arbitrage.
Arbitrage. Okay.
We talked earlier about sending tasks to the cheapest adequate model, right? Well, the conductor automates that entirely.
Oh, so humans don't have to pick the model every time.
Right. It analyzes the complexity of the prompt and automatically routes it to the most cost-effective model capable of handling it. It completely neutralizes the AI lab's pricing power because you are never locked into one vendor's expensive ecosystem.
Okay, so arbitrage essentially does the shopping for you to save you money. But what about the security aspect?
That's where the second job comes in.
Because Let's say a junior developer at a major bank wants to optimize a piece of a proprietary high-frequency trading algorithm.
A very sensitive task.
If arbitrage just blindly sends that code to the cheapest open model on the public cloud, the bank just gave away its crown jewels to save a few pennies.
Which is why arbitrage without the second job sovereignty is incredibly dangerous.
Sovereignty, that sounds like the actual lifesaver here.
It really is. Sovereignty allows the enterprise to run open models on their own internal infrastructure. So in your bank scenario, the conductor recognizes the sensitive nature of the code.
It knows it's the secret sauce.
Exactly. And instead of routing it to a public cloud, it routes it to an open source model that the bank is hosting internally, strictly behind their own firewalls.
Wow. Okay.
Sovereignty mathematically guarantees that your hard-earned knowledge never becomes third-party training data for a frontier model that your biggest rival can just go rent for pennies tomorrow.
So arbitrage saves the money and sovereignty saves the company.
You nailed it. And the white paper outlines a third job for the conductor, too. Optionality.
Optionality. This seems to be about pure freedom of movement, right?
Yes. If a specific AI lab suddenly changes their terms of service or has a massive server outage, or, this happens all the time, if a competitor releases a brilliant new open source model overnight.
You don't want to be stuck.
Right. You don't have to spend 6 months rewriting your entire tech stack to switch to the new model. You literally just pivot the conductor. You are never held hostage to a single lab's roadmap.
Man, okay, so the membrane protects the vault and it makes sure you're getting the best deal, but doesn't actually fill the vault.
Right. It's just the gateway.
And that is the biggest operational question here. How do you practically generate and grow this work intelligence asset in the real world, day to day? Like, how do you extract the knowledge out of your workers' heads and get it into the system?
It's the multi-million-dollar question. And the sources detail a platform designed to do exactly that, called the EON Intelligence Flywheel.
A flywheel.
And reading about the mechanics of this, it is pretty wild. It operates in 5 distinct phases, right?
5 phases, yeah.
The first phase is called Genesis.
Yeah.
This is where the expertise is initially captured from your top performers.
Right.
But the paper makes a really crucial point here that I think we need to highlight. EON isn't some software startup that just pivoted to AI yesterday because it's trendy.
Not at all.
They are building this work intelligence category on a 25-year foundation of immersive learning technology. Like, they have deployed spatial computing, augmented reality, and virtual reality in over 80 countries already.
And that historical context is vital because it explains how Genesis actually works in practice.
Tell me more about that. So they aren't just sitting experts down in a room and having them type out what they do into a text box.
Back to the dead text on the shared drive.
Exactly. They're avoiding that completely.
Yeah.
They are using spatial computing to capture the physical reality of work.
Okay, give me an example of what that looks like.
Imagine a master aviation mechanic performing a highly complex diagnostic on a jet engine turbine.
Okay.
Genesis can use spatial tracking, all movement data, and hand gesture capture in a spatial environment to record exactly how that master mechanic approaches the problem.
Whoa.
Yeah. It captures their intuition, the sequence of their actions, the specific physical angles they use.
So it literally digitizes their physical mastery.
Yes. And once Genesis captures that, it moves to the second phase, field IQ.
Right, field IQ. This takes that captured, digitized expertise and delivers it right at the point of work for another employee. So like a novice mechanic working out on the tarmac halfway across the world can wear a spatial headset and see the exact step-by-step guidance overlaid right onto the physical engine in front of them based on the master mechanic's captured session from Genesis.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
But, just delivering the instruction isn't enough. You have to close the loop.
Meaning you have to make sure they actually did it right.
Right. Which brings us to the third phase, assess IQ. This verifies competence out in the field.
So it's testing them.
Yes, but it doesn't just ask the novice mechanic to check a box on an iPad saying they finished the task. The system actually observes and verifies that the expert procedure was executed correctly in physical space.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Did they apply the right torque? Did they follow the safety protocol in the correct exact order?
I can see how that generates a massive amount of data, but raw data can be pretty messy, right?
Messy.
Like, you could have a worker do something incorrectly, and if the system just blindly absorbs it, your intelligence starts getting pretty dumb over time.
Which is exactly why all of this is gated by an integrity layer called EON Verdict.
EON Verdict, okay.
Think of Verdict as, like, the strict quality control inspector standing right at the door of the vault. It evaluates all that data coming from its SEQ, and it filters out any anomalies, mistakes, or inefficiencies.
It's a bouncer for your data.
It's a bouncer. It ensures that only clean, accurate, verified data actually makes it through to the final stage.
And finally, the data that actually survives verdict goes into the grand finale of the flywheel, which they call compound IQ.
The most important part.
Right. This is where all that verified, field-tested knowledge accumulates back into the appreciating owned corpus. So like the smartest, most efficient thing your master mechanic did today, that becomes the permanent foundational baseline for what every single mechanic does tomorrow.
And that's the magic of a flywheel in physics, right? It takes a massive amount of effort to get it spinning initially.
Setting up the headsets, getting the software running.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But once it is moving, it generates its own momentum.
Yeah.
By constantly capturing expertise, delivering it, verifying it in the field, and compounding it, the enterprise is continuously feeding better data back into its own system.
So it just spins faster and faster.
Yes. The owned corpus gets smarter, more refined, and exponentially more valuable over time. It becomes this self-improving loop of institutional knowledge.
Okay, so looking at the whole board now, the contrast between EON's strategy and the rest of the market is just incredibly stark.
It really is night and day.
Which brings our argument full circle back to those $13 billion valuations for the infrastructure companies we talked about at the beginning.
Right, the market obsession.
The market is completely obsessed with funding the servers, the chips, and the data centers. But EON is aggressively distinguishing its position from that infrastructure layer.
They want no part of that race.
No. Dan Lajerskar actually refers to those infrastructure companies as the picks and shovels of commoditization.
I love that phrase.
It's so good. He points out that they're just running other people's models on other people's clouds on a thinning margin.
A thinning margin because, again, inference is a race to the bottom. Someone, somewhere, will always figure out how to cool a data center slightly cheaper or, optimize a chip slightly better, and the price will just drop again.
It's inevitable.
EON's ultimate thesis is that the real moat-like, the defensive barrier that truly protects a business from its competitors is not your position in the technology stack.
Because tech gets replaced.
Always. If your only advantage is that you rent faster servers, someone will eventually rent them cheaper. The real moat is the compounding owned corpus.
It makes me think about an orchestra.
Okay, let's hear it.
So the AI labs, they're basically churning out cheaper, better violins every single day.
Right.
And the infrastructure companies, the ones raising $13 billion, they are busy building bigger and bigger concert halls to hold all these violins.
Okay, I follow.
But EON is stepping back and saying, stop obsessing over the wood and the strings and stop trying to own the building. We need to own the sheet music.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Because a cheap violin playing a verified, perfectly composed masterpiece is worth infinitely more than a priceless Stradivarius just playing chopsticks.
That captures it perfectly. The AI models are just the instruments.
Right.
You don't need to build them, you just need to play them. While the cost of the instruments plummets, the value of the sheet music, the captured, verified, perfectly orchestrated knowledge of how your company actually functions is going through the roof.
So boiling all of this down, the core takeaway that you should walk away with from this white paper is EON's ultimate mantra.
Which is?
Orchestrate the commodity, own the compound. Let the AI models fight it out in a brutal, margin-crushing price war to be the absolute cheapest and fastest. Just let them commoditize themselves.
Let them do the heavy lifting.
Exactly. You just use the EON conductor to orchestrate that cheap power, and you use the intelligence flywheel to relentlessly build the ultimate proprietary library of how your experts do their jobs.
It is a phenomenal framework for, cutting through the noise of the AI hype cycle and focusing on where the actual business value is settling.
It really is. Orchestrate the commodity, own the compound. It completely reorients how you look at enterprise software.
Definitely.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final kind of lingering thought to mull over on your own.
The provoking thought.
Right. So we talked about that game at the very beginning, the game where the tool gets cheaper and you have to focus on what you build with it. Well, imagine a company successfully uses this EON flywheel. They capture the spatial data, the decision-making, the physical intuition of their very best human experts, day after day, year after year.
The ultimate compounding effect.
Exactly. But what happens decades from now? What happens when that work intelligence corpus becomes so vast, so historically deep, and so perfectly optimized that it actually knows how to run the physical operations of the business far better than the human executives who first started training it?
That is a wild thought.
Right. If the exact how of work is completely perfectly codified into an ever-compounding system, what does the future of human intuition in the workplace actually look like? Think about it. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.